Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you know, my name is Mark Meinman, and thank you for joining the next session of our Financial Wellness Forum. This is my passion project to try to bring awareness to topics about financial literacy and real estate. And I'm excited to talk to you today. Our topic is cost segregation, and would love to invite my co-host, Kevin Miller, from Veritax Advisors onto the screen. Kevin, nice to see you again. Thanks for joining us and spending time to educate our community. We appreciate you joining us.
Good to see you again too, Mark, and I appreciate the opportunity. I think this is a topic people find really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, taxes and real estate are really intertwined quite a bit. So so the goal here obviously is to find ways to make sure that our community is aware of what's going on and how to take advantage of these opportunities. So, so Kevin, maybe you can introduce yourself and tell the group about yourself and your firm.
Sure. My name is Kevin Miller, and I'm a specialty tax consultant with Veritax Advisors. I work from California, but we have other people that work throughout the country. Our corporate entity is in St. George, Utah, and our principal is Chris Osler. He's a 26 years CPA. He's been doing specialty tax, specifically cost segregation and R&D tax credits for the past 12 years. We've done over 3,000 cost segregation studies.
Right. So you're new to it, is what you're saying. It's brand new. Yeah. First time.
First time. Yeah.
Right, exactly. All right, sounds good. So maybe just to start, for those people checking this out today who may not be familiar with cost segregation, maybe you could just give us a quick layman's term overview of what exactly it is.
I will. This will probably be the longest answer out of all our questions, but be simple. So a cost segregation study is really an engineering study of a property. So as you know, or maybe not, properties depreciate, and depreciation is a non-tax cash deduction. It's called depreciation expense. And it's something the IRS lets you use every year to relieve some of your taxes. For commercial buildings, that's a 39-year depreciation period. And for residential buildings, it's a 27.5-year depreciation period. So when you have the basis of the building, the tax basis, they split it evenly over either 39 or 27.5 years, and you get a small amount to write off every year. Well, when you purchase a building, there's typically two components. You have the property and the structure itself. The land is not depreciable, the structure is. And so what we do is that we go into the building and actually perform an engineering study. We physically inspect every building we do a cost segregation study on. So we'll send an inspector in, he'll be on the phone with an engineer, and we take measurements and photographs. And while we're going through the building, we're looking for things that can depreciate faster as per the IRS. Things like floor coverings, hardwood floors, specialty lighting, some of the plumbing, HVAC, that sort of thing. And then on the outside of the building, on the property, look for property improvements, whether that be swimming pools, patios, decks, parking stops, parking bollards, whatever might be out there. So those items, those are available for cost segregation to accelerate the depreciation. So once we do that study in the building, an engineer looks at it and he deconstructs the building from the ground up. So literally from the foundation up, they break it into every single component. So some of the components we find in the structure, and some we find out in the improvements on the outside of the structure, we apply a value to them. Okay, and that allows us to use those particular components to accelerate your depreciation expense. And we apply. Sorry, somebody else came on. I've seen somebody here.
That's okay. Keep going.
And we apply a value to those particular items. Those particular items, the CPA applies a value, and that is given to you as accelerated depreciation expense that you can use against your tax liability to defer your taxes for that particular year, or even future years.
Okay, so if I'm understanding it correctly, you pick apart specific components of the building structure itself to be able to accelerate the depreciation. And for those who can't, or who are not connecting the dots as to how that helps you as an investor, it basically allows you to get more income tax-free at the beginning of the investment. Is that correct?
It does, or even if you had it for a few years. So
Right, exactly. Okay. Yeah, and I mean, depreciation is an investor's best friend because it allows you to not have to pay taxes on your income. So I just did a minor personal story here. Just did a ADU conversion, which I converted a garage. So some pretty significant construction, and it's a property I'll probably hold for 5 to 10 years. And so this is something that Kevin and I are going to talk about offline, of course, but going through that type of study for someone like me who might hold a property, let's say for 10 years, I won't be able to depreciate the whole thing if I just do the standard method where it's equal every single year. But if I can accelerate some of that, it means I can keep more money, improve my cash flow overall because I don't have to pay taxes on some of that income. And then in the event that I do a 1031 exchange, you can defer all those taxes so that you never, until you sell one of those properties and don't do a 1031 exchange, might actually be able to not pay taxes on those for many, many years. Do I have that correct?
yeah, that's basically correct. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so tell me about it. We kind of talked through the benefits of doing it. Obviously, it's the the acceleration of the depreciation, but roughly how much does something like this cost to do? And maybe you can give us an example or two that kind of show how much it could actually save someone. And let's use the example of not a big commercial developer, but a lot of our clients and our network are looking to kind of build a side hustle in real estate, as I say. So let's assume it's not a massive commercial project.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll stick with a residential project. And I think you're going to ask me this later possibly, but this has to be an investment property. It cannot be a primary.
Right.
We had an investor who purchased a home in Calistoga, which is up in the Napa Valley, very nice place. She spent $960,000 on this home. We did a cost segregation study. It cost her $5,000. And this home was extremely well appointed. And it turned out she owned a lot of land around the house, including into the street. So some of the sidewalk, the asphalt and all that. So we were able to accelerate $300,000 of depreciation expense for her.
Wow. So basically until she used up that $300,000, she wasn't paying taxes on her cash flow, on positive cash flow.
Correct. Yep.
Right. And does this work for long-term rentals, short-term rentals, or it really doesn't matter?
Both, doesn't matter. You can even if you have a short-term rental or a portion of your property is short-term and your primary and the other one, actually, you can actually write off the portion of the home that is short-term. And that'll be 39-year property since you're using it as basically as a hotel space.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that might be another angle because I know, Airbnbs are becoming very popular. I own one myself as one of my properties in my own portfolio, and they function very differently, but good to know that this can apply to both. So it sounds like, geez, that's pretty darn good to be able to spend $5,000 to defer $300,000 of actual tax. And some people don't hang on to the property long enough to be able to even see that, let's say that in that example, $300,000 all the way to the end before they might sell it and turn it over to a different property. So that just kind of shows you it's, with real estate investing, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you can keep. Yeah. Just like any other investment. There's a big difference between those two. If you're making great money, but you're losing half of it to taxes, that's a shame, and the tax code is so incredibly friendly to real estate investors. This is just one more way that we wanted to highlight that people can benefit from the tax code in investing in real estate as opposed to other means, because you can't do something like this on stock investments or bonds or anything like that. So it's it amazes me every time I think about it and find out about new things, how amazingly advantageous the tax code is for real estate. It must have been written by people who invest in real estate. and reapproved by all those people as well.
Right.
So, and I assume because it's a, a physical asset, this can't be done on any type of other investment, correct? It has to be real estate.
It's real estate, applies specifically to real estate.
Okay. And are there any restrictions on what types of buildings or projects that it would apply to?
None. Anything that's an investment property, real estate investment property will work, except for primary residence.
Got it. Okay. And are there any specific, like in your experience, any particular type of investment or investor that you think benefits from it more than others? Like if you're doing an investment short-term versus long-term, big project versus small project, is there more benefit to one or the other, or do you think it's pretty much equivalent across the board?
Pretty equal, but you do not want to do it if you're going to flip a house or if you're going to hold it less than a couple of years, because then you'll be subject to depreciation recapture. So if you've taken this non-cash accelerated depreciation expense, and then you only hold the property for a couple of years and you sell it, you're going to have to pay some of that back to the IRS.
Got it. Okay. So you got to hold it for minimum 2 years, which most investments, unless you're into flipping in particular, and that's your angle with investing in real estate, most people aren't going to benefit enough in appreciation to want to sell that property within 2 years, especially if it's cash flowing nicely. You might keep it forever, so to speak.
Right.
So with the accelerated depreciation, let's say you do hold a property for the full 27 years or 39 years, whatever it may be, depending on the property type. Do you end up taking the same amount of depreciation if you see that all the way through? And it just allows you to take more of it up front? Like, does it sort of cascade downward over time as far as the benefit?
It does. So it depends on when you purchase the property, if it's, during the same tax year or purchased it previously, on how you depreciate it. So after September 27th, 2017, when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was enacted, you could take 100% bonus depreciation from then until January 1st of 2023. Then you can't use 100% bonus anymore. So the bonus means that as you get that full amount of bonus depreciation, depreciable expense, you could use all of it immediately if you wanted to, right? So in that case, you'd see it, maybe you do need all of it for that 1 year. Maybe you had a great year, you have a lot of tax liability on your income investments, and so you use it all. But still, as you see it, if you use it incrementally over maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years, after that, your depreciation goes back to the regular 27.5 year schedule. Right?
Got it. And
it's front loaded is what it is.
Okay, got it. And have you seen, I don't know if you can answer this question, but I would assume there's some additional accounting that an accountant needs to do when they file your tax returns. Have you seen, like, does it typically cost a little bit more for an accountant to track this for you over time?
We try to offset that amount. Some, yes, they can. If they need to file a couple different forms, 41A or 3115, which basically those forms tells the IRS you're going to change your method of accounting for your depreciation expense.
Got it. So yeah, I would imagine most accountants are going to charge you at least a little bit extra on your taxes. So that's something you want to factor in. But in the example you gave, if it costs you $5,000 and you're depreciating $300,000, it costs you an extra $100 or $200 a year. I think you'll still come out on top by far.
And one of the benefits with our company anyway is we actually help your accountant with those forms. So some accountants charge more to actually produce those forms. When you do a cost segregation study with our firm, we give it to them and help them fill it out, so it offsets your expense.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's definitely helpful. Because as an investor, I certainly wouldn't know how to fill something like that out. So I think that would be great. Now, what if somebody's owned a property already for a few years? I'll use myself for an example. I've owned a couple of my investments now for 2 or 3 years. And I didn't know about cost segregation until more recently. So is it still beneficial even for somebody who's owned a property already for a few years, or do you need to start it right within the first tax year of ownership?
No, it's beneficial. Even, if you start to have a liability, tax liability, like on a 27.5 year residential property,
Mhm.
here is nothing, so you still have all that depreciation left, right? 27.5 years. So actually, we can always take a look at it. And there might be an opportunity to get something out of it, some bones left, on the structure, all the way up to maybe 17 or 18 years into your 27.5 year life. So,
Wow. Yeah, so it's almost never too late to do something like this. And is there a way to assess the potential benefit before you go through the whole study process where you get the engineer to come and inspect the property? Like, is there some way to get a ballpark idea of what you might be able to do?
absolutely. So we just need some information from the client. Usually it's, we like to see an appraisal and either a closing statement or a federal depreciation schedule from their taxes. And then we can look at those and actually give them an estimate that'll show, a low, a medium, and an optimum of how much we think they're going to save. And it also shows, we were talking about earlier, what does it look like? What do you save the first few years? And then what does it look like for the rest of the depreciation life of that property? It'll show you all that too. So, and that's free.
Right. Okay, great. So you get a pretty good read. I mean, within a range, of course, because just like me, everybody asks me what's the interest rate without telling me what their credit score is and all that. So it's a range. So I understand, and I can relate to fielding that specific question. Maybe you can give a couple of examples of, like, people that you've worked with. I know you gave one already, but like, an investor that maybe came to you and didn't really know what they were doing, and you kind of helped them turn things around. Like, I don't know, anything that just kind of spoke to you as an example of how this works and how beneficial it can be.
Well, yeah. So actually, my partner Geraldine has a good example of that. She actually received a phone call from somebody. He's an investor, and he purchases homes, lives in them for a while, and then he ends up renting them out. So he has multiple properties. And he was speaking, he actually had a check in his hand. He was ready to mail it, $100,000 to the IRS. Okay. And he ran into one of Geraldine's clients. And he told him what he's doing. He goes, don't send the check. Wait to send the check. Call Geraldine. And so he had, I don't know how many properties he had at that time. We cost segged a few of his properties. It completely relieved him of the $100,000 tax liability. And he's
Wow.
a residential investor.
Amazing. Yeah. If that's not compelling enough, nobody, I know there's a lot of agents on this call and independent contractors, and everyone hates sending those checks to the IRS. So that's a pretty compelling one to completely eliminate $100,000 tax liability. That's goes to show you the $5,000 or so cost of something like that is clearly justified. So what's one thing, if you have to pick one thing or two, is fine, but things you wish investors knew ahead of time or did differently, or like mistakes that you've seen people make, other than just not calling you before they write that check to the IRS, but like what sort of areas have you seen people kind of trip up and not take advantage of the full opportunity?
Well, quite frankly, it's waiting too long or paying taxes for too many years and just not knowing about this tax strategy. So I think what that comes down to is, if you're doing your own taxes, don't get a CPA. Get a CPA that is good with tax planning if you're going to be an investor. We see a lot of clients that use tax preparers, right? So at the end of the year, they do their taxes, but they really don't know how to apply these type of strategies to investment clientele. So that's probably the most that we see. People go, oh man, I can't believe I've already paid so much for the past 10 years before I knew about this. And that's probably the most that I see.
Yeah, this is a hidden gem. I've been investing for 15 years thereabouts, and I didn't know about this until recently. So that's partly why we're doing this today, is to get awareness out there about this amazing benefit, and not to sell the community specifically on your services, but just the service alone is so incredibly valuable, especially if you're if you have a cash flowing property, why write that check to the IRS, especially if you do what I do, which is 1031 one property into another over time. When the timing is right to do that, you might never pay taxes on the income you're receiving. Again, tax code is so incredibly beneficial here, but you really got to know how to take advantage of, legally what the options are. And this is a great way to do that. So, so for your firm, is there any restriction on location? Like, can you guys help people in different states, or you have to be licensed in each state individually? Like, how does that work?
No, we actually can do it in every state, in 50 states and Puerto Rico. So, and we work daily in different states.
That's great. Yeah, because we do have a wide network of people on both coasts that'll be either on this call live or potentially watching afterwards. So, and how would you suggest? Let's say people don't find you, but they're looking for a firm that does this. How do you know, like, if they're reputable? If they would, like, what makes it a good company to work with?
I would Google them and look at the reviews. And also, it's the same thing. It's like anything else. If you're paying a little bit and getting this huge result, that's probably a red flag. So you want to look for a company that has a good track record. Speak with them, get a couple of different quotes, and see what's beneficial. The low cost leader is probably not going to be your best choice.
Right.
These things, and we see people come to us and they say, I did this cost tech study with brand X, and I'm not, bagging on brand X, but they'll show us the study and we go, wow, that's really not a lot. They only move forward about 13% of your depreciable expense. And we're in the habit of finding between 20 and 40%. So, don't look at the low cost leader, look at a spectrum, look them up, make sure they haven't been sued a bunch of times, because that's out there. So.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, I would also suggest, like we've talked about on other sessions before, like having your highly qualified team is so critical when you're investing in real estate, because there's so many aspects of it, whether it be a contractor, cost segregation, accountant. Don't cut corners on those people. Pay them what they're worth and let them do and add the true value of what you could get from their services. That's always been a big thing for me. And you're right. It's the same thing with mortgages. There's Rocket Mortgage out there, and maybe they'll do something cheaply, but they won't do it very well. And something like this is something that needs expertise, because I would imagine if it's not done correctly or not submitted properly to the IRS, it could theoretically trigger an audit. Have you seen anything like that happen?
Yeah, it can. And usually that, so we do a few things differently, I think, than a lot of companies. We do a physical inspection on every building. So that way we have backup. We have measurements, we have photos, we have our complete depreciable asset study, and we have audit defense for the life of our study. So we've only seen a couple of audits. We've had 2 audits, and it wasn't because of our study. It was because the CPA and the client wanted to get a little bit aggressive on the land building basis, right? So they thought the building basis was 90% and the land was going to be 10. IRS said, no, we don't think so. They got audited, and all they had to do was change their depreciable basis. And also there is and I lost my train of thought right there. Sorry about that.
Is there anything that your firm does? Like, do you participate if there were an audit?
Yes, we have audit defense, and we defend our study. So we'll help your CPA defend our study.
Okay, great. And does that cost the user more money if you had to do that?
No, absolutely free of charge.
Okay, so that's included in the service. Yeah, I mean, that's important, because in the event that you do try to get a little aggressive and the IRS questions, it doesn't mean it's not legitimate, but sometimes they'll question things that are, a little outside the box. But I would imagine there's enough of this out there to where the IRS, obviously they have a tax code that allows for this. So I don't think this in and of itself would be a red flag, but I could see if you really try to push the limits too far, which I wouldn't be surprised if some of the other firms you mentioned, brand X, so to speak, might try to either underdo it or maybe overdo it and could trigger an audit. So nobody wants to be audited, that's for sure.
So what you want to avoid is actually going back and amending your tax return. So remember I spoke about Form 3115. That is a change in method of accounting. That is, IRS accepts that all day long. You're changing the method of how you're accounting for your depreciation expense.
Got it. So again, don't shortchange the cost segregation company or the accountant that's helping you prepare the documents, because not doing it correctly is gonna trigger a problem potentially. So that's great. Kevin, any final thoughts? Anything we haven't talked about yet that you think people should know about?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two things. One is called a two-part study. So when you're 1031ing out of your property and you're relinquishing that property and your step-up property, when you go into that, do a cost segregation study before you 1031 out and get the benefit from that.
Interesting.
Then do a study on the new property before you renovate it. Because when you renovate that new property and you're doing that kitchen, you're taking all the cabinets out, 5-year property, by the way, it's all acceleratable expense. Carpets, cabinets, different things that come out of that house all have residual depreciation left in them. Okay, the things you're disposing of. So you can take those, it's called a partial asset disposition, and then remove it, do your upgrades, have us do a second study, and then take advantage of all that improvements that you put in the house, so you can kind of double dip that way.
Wow. Whoa. Okay. Now you got me excited, because I'm actually putting a bid on something later today that's going to be a renovation project. So you and I will definitely be connecting again offline.
Bonus depreciation, one other thing, and it I talk about 100% bonus. It ended in 2023. So 2023, the full amount of what you get in accelerated depreciation expense, you can only use 80% of it this year. Next year, you can only use 60. Next year, you can only use 40, and on until it sunsets. So if you're thinking about, investing in properties and using cost segregation, it's a good time to do it this year before you lose another 20% next year of what you can.
Right. So the sooner the better. All right, Kevin, I think your phone's going to start ringing here pretty soon with anybody who's got investment properties already. I don't really see much of a downside here, as long as you can, afford the initial out-of-pocket expense. It seems like you're going to benefit. This is a great service where you're going to benefit a lot more than what it's actually going to cost you. So as an investor, that's what we do, right? We create cash flow. We put money in and make more money out. So yeah, so Kevin, I really appreciate you joining us today. This has been really informative for me. I've definitely learned something and understand this a lot better. You'll be hearing from me personally and hopefully others on the call today. But this is a really helpful topic that I think a lot of people just don't know about. And I think it's one of those things that when people know about it, they're going to see the true benefit of it. And I appreciate you bringing light to that. So thank you, Kevin, for joining us today and, sharing your insights.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to helping you and anybody else.
Absolutely. So, so for the rest of the group, I'm going to share Kevin's information here. So that you can get in touch with him if you'd like. And also, as far as our next session of the Financial Wellness Forum is going to be March 8th, and we're going to be doing a 101 overview of life insurance with a longtime friend of our team, Dan Greifenberg from Northwestern Mutual, will be joining us. So keep an eye out for the announcements of that session. We've also recently launched our Financial Wellness Forum website, which is accessible to people who have registered. So you can watch sessions like today's and others that we've recorded in the past, get the schedule of upcoming sessions and be able to share it with others. If you are so inclined, we would love to get word out about these types of things that we're talking about and get more people involved. So please share this with them. The website, for those of you who are already registered, is thefinancialwellnessforum.com. just launched officially today. We're very excited. And for those of you who would like to connect with either myself or Kevin, here's our information that we'll leave you with today. And thank you again, Kevin. Thank you all for attending. And we look forward to seeing everybody on the next session.